I'm going to start with bones. The bones in and around the wrist consist of the forearm bones, carpal bones, and hand bones. There are two long bones in the forearm that run from the elbow to the wrist. The larger bone, the radius, is on the same side as the thumb, and the smaller bone, the ulna, is on the little finger side. We have different rows of bones in our wrist. It's a carpal bones, metacarpal bones, and phalanx. Phalanx themselves divided into proximal phalanx, intermediate phalanx, and distal phalanx. Where the radius bone meets the wrist are two rows of small round bones, 4 in each row, known as carpal bones. Proximal carpals, the row of carpal bones closest to the forearm, and distal carpals, the row of carpal bones closer to the fingers. Together, the 8 carpal bones are called the carpus. The distal carpals form 5 joints with the hand bones, and the hand bones are called metacarpal bones. Metacarpals are long bones that connected the distal carpals to the fingers and thumb. We have different joints in our wrist. First one is radiocarpal joint. The distal end of radius articulates with 2 bones of proximal row of carpal bone, which are lunate, scaphoid, quertum, to form the wrist joint. Second one is intercarpal joint, articulation between the carpal bones. Then it's carpometacarpal joint. The base of metacarpals articulate with distal row of carpal bones. Then metacarpophalangeal joint. The hand of metacarpals articulate with the base of proximal phalanx. And interphalangeal joint, which are 9 joints articulate with, between the phalanx. Muscles and tendons. The muscles of hands subdivided into intrinsic muscles and extrinsic muscles. I'm going to start with extrinsic muscles. They are located proximally in the forearm and insert to the hand skeleton by long tendons, and they are divided into extensors and flexors. First, we're going to start with extensors. Extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis, and extensor carpi ulnaris. Then we have extensor pollicis brevis, pollicis longus, abductor pollicis longus, extensor digitorum communis, and extensor digiti minimi. Then we go to flexors, flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor carpi radialis, palmar longus, flexor digitorum profundus, flexor digitorum superficialis, and flexor pollicis longus. Intrinsic muscles, they are located within the hand itself, and they are divided into 4 groups: tenar, hypothenar, lumbrical, and interosseous. The tenar group consists of abductor pollicis brevis, flexor pollicis brevis, opponens pollicis, and abductor pollicis. All the muscles of the tenar are innervated by median nerve, except AP by deep branch of ulnar nerve. Then we go to hypothenar group. It consists of flexor digiti minimi, abductor digiti minimi, and opponens digiti minimi. All the muscles of this group innervated by the deep branch of the ulnar. Lumbricals. The lumbrical muscles contribute to flexion of the metacarpophalangeal joint and extension of the interphalangeal joints. And interosseous group. Interosseous group consists of 3 palmar muscles and 4 dorsal muscles, innervated by the deep branch of the ulnar nerve. Dorsal interosseous abduct the fingers. Palmar interosseous abduct the fingers to hand axis. Then we go to nerves. The hand is innervated by 3 nerves. It's median nerve, ulnar nerve, and the radial nerve. Each one has a sensory and motor components. First, I'm going to start with median nerve. Sensory digital branches provide sensation to thumb, index, and ring finger, and it also has no branches to arm. Ulnar nerve. The dorsal branch provides sensation to ulnar portion of the dorsum of hand and small finger, and also part of ring finger. And radial nerve, innervating the wrist extensors. At the elbow, motor branches innervate the brachioradialis and extensor carpi radialis longus muscles. I'm going to start with blood supply. The radial and ulnar arteries, which are branches of the brachial artery, provide the blood supply to hand. The radial artery runs distally in the forearm between the brachioradialis and flexor carpi radialis muscles. The ulnar artery runs distally in the forearm under the flexor carpi ulnaris muscle. The superficial palmar arch is formed mainly by the ulnar artery with a contribution of the radial artery. The arch gives rise to common palmar digital arteries, which supply the palm, and each divide into a pair of proper palmar digital arteries, which supply the finger. And deep palmar arch is formed mainly by the radial artery with a contribution from a branch of the ulnar artery. It gives rise to palmar metacarpal arteries, which supply the palm, and anastomose with the common palmar digital arteries to the superficial palmar arch. Veins. Veins generally follow the deep arterial system as venae combinantes. A superficial venous system also exists at the dorsum of the hand, contributes to the cephalic and basilic vein in the upper extremity. Dorsal digital veins pass along the sides of fingers and are joined to another by oblique communication branches. Those form from the adjacent sides of the finger unite to form 3 dorsal metacarpal veins. Dorsal digital veins pass along the sides of finger and are joined to one another by oblique communicating branches. Those form the adjacent sides of finger unite to form 3 dorsal metacarpal veins. And the dorsal venous network of hand found on the back of hand and give rise to veins such as cephalic and basilic veins. Palmar metacarpal veins drains the metacarpal region of palm, eventually draining into the deep palmar venous arch and then to the radial veins which drain the lateral aspect of the arm. Proper palmar digital, which drain into the common palmar digital veins, then drain to the superficial palmar venous arch and eventually draining to the ulnar veins, which drain the medial aspect of the arm. The extensor tendon compartments of the wrist. There are 6 tunnels which transmit the long extensor tendons from the forearm into the hand. They are located on the posterior aspect of the wrist. Each tunnel is lined internally by a synovial sheath and separated from another by fibrous septa. And we have 6 compartments. First compartment. The first extensor compartment is located on the lateral, that means radial aspect of the wrist. It transmits 2 tendons, extensor pollicis brevis, abductor pollicis longus. Compartment 2. The second extensor compartment contains the tendon of the extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis. Compartment 3. Compartment 3 conducts the extensor pollicis longus tendon. This forms the medial border of the anatomical snuff box. The 4th compartment of the wrist transmit the tendons of the extensor digitorum and extensor indicis. Compartment 5 contains the extensor digiti minimi tendon, which travels into the little fingers. The 6th compartment is located on the medial ulnar aspect of the wrist. It conducts the tendon of the extensor carpi ulnaris.